Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star, and look what we have here. For the second time in under a week, the O-Dog Jeff O'Neill back in the big seat.
I'd like you to call me a Matt Kuchar supporter.
You're a Kuch guy. You're a supporter of Kuch.
Dude.
Wow.
What a stunt that guy pulled the other day at the Wyndham, making everyone go back there. That's where I just said, no way, Kuch. Like, I'm done with you. I've kind of been a quasi-supporter in the past, and you pulled that stunt. Yeah. No way.
Yeah, he had the baggy khaki. He had to wear the same gear, too, right? Like, that's the way it works on tour. So the Skechers shoes came back out, the baggy khaki pants. And he hit kind of a cut hybrid, a wedge and a 2-foot putt and left. He was on the course for 12 minutes.
What about his caddy, though? Didn't his caddy say, like, actually, you're finishing? Like,
right.
Hayes, let's just, like, you know, if it was me and you were my caddy, you'd be like, no, you're playing out the hole.
Right.
And we're leaving tonight.
Get me out of here, dude.
Yes.
We're T12.
Like, come on.
You're not in contention here. This isn't a FedEx Cup thing. Like, again, the awkwardness of showing up at the clubhouse the next day and shaking people's hands, and they're like, really? You're here again?
Yeah.
Oh, great to see you. God. Thanks, Kuch. Like, do you think I want to be here? I have a life, dude. I was supposed to leave. We were supposed to go to Disney with the kids, but I got to be back because Kuch needs to hit a hybrid wedge putt before he leaves and goes back to Utah or wherever.
And what I just can't figure out is what was at stake that was so important for him to do that?
It was a protest, I think, man. He was bent out of shape at the pace of play, which I do understand. That Aaron Rye makes Cantlay look like Koepka.
Oh, 2 minutes a shot.
Yeah,
get a shot clock out there, O-Dog.
That Aaron Rye, he is going to have people starting to hate him. 1 foot putt, and he takes a minute and 20 seconds to get over it and putt it. It's insane.
It's crazy.
O-Dog, but what did you make of Kuchar? He had this case that he was trying to teach Max Grazerman, who obviously blew the tournament, had a 4-shot lead with 5 to go, and couldn't get it closed. But he was trying to teach a lesson to the young guys that the players have the right not to play if it's too dark, and he thought Max should have been exercising that right.
I just think that everything that he did on that particular day was pathetic and stupid, and I think nobody respects his decision. And I think he figured it out afterwards. If he expected people to be like, attaboy, Kuch, had to show those guys, I think everyone looked at that guy and said, you're an idiot. And that didn't show anything, and you just looked dumb. And everyone that had to go back to that golf course that was fed up with that long tournament because they had to play 36 was like, you're an idiot.
Well, that was another thing. There were rain delays the whole week. You were all bent out of shape.
Yeah.
And I might accept that if Grayson was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to put a peg in the ground. I'll see you tomorrow, Kuch. He said, screw you. I'm playing. I got to leave, man. And that's a kid that's made no money on tour.
Yeah.
Every shot counts. Every point
what about
counts.
the guys on the greens that, like, probably after a tournament, they go back into the barn and they have 100 beers as kind of a celebratory, the tournament's over, great job, everyone. And they're like, we have to show up for Kuch tomorrow.
It's so much better than it's Kuch.
We are not getting crushed tonight because we got to get to the 18th green for Kuch.
Yeah. Well, on the range, man, he had a full range session.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like he hit 75 drivers on the range, and he never pulled it out of his bag.
That is insane, dude.
Just
what did he think? He was going to maybe have a playoff and play more golf? Somebody had to tap him on the shoulder and said, there's no playoff if you get this up and down.
Right. Like, it would have been better if he said that, guys. I'm going to pull into the parking lot. I'm bringing 3 clubs with me.
Yeah.
I'm putting my ball down. I'll be out of here in 5 minutes. Don't even worry about me.
Yeah, don't even cut the green.
Don't worry. Take the flag out. I don't even care. I'll take care of it. But no.
But O-Dog, he had to, of course, the first thing he did, O-Dog, I was just saying to Hayes, the first thing he does is he gets the rules official over there and he gets a bogus drop that they always give these guys. Doesn't that just kill you?
That's the best, too.
It's just crazy.
I love it.
I just couldn't believe it. I was seeing some tweets and I'm like, this has got to be from yesterday. And I'm like, that bastard's out on that golf course right now at 9 o'clock in the morning and had no problem with it. Insane.
I texted him, man. I'm like, Cooch might be more hated than Greg Norman right now.
I know.
Like, it might be Cooch, Norman, and then they make decisions after that.
Even Nance took a shot at him. For Nance to say, I don't think we'll be giving you that coverage tomorrow.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that was the finale of CBS. Like, they were basically like, we'll see you next year at Riviera. Like, we are out of here. We're not coming back for you, Cooch.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. All right, buddy. Well, let's not bury the lead. I don't think we did, because Cooch coverage, we will always cover Cooch, as we should. But you're a former Maple Leaf. I mean, you understand, the honor that comes with being captain, and also, the uniqueness of this. It's not like John Tavares is playing somewhere else. Tavares is still a Leaf. I don't know if he's going to have an A on his jersey or not. I mean, that's a separate conversation, what they do with the A's. Is it Tavares? Is it Riley? Is it Marner? Is it Willie? Maybe that gets answered tomorrow, but I guess the baton is being passed here, and Auston Matthews will be the captain of the Maple Leafs. What do you make of that?
Well, there's so many different angles and ways to look at this, why it happened, what's going to happen, what's in the locker room. And for people that are wondering, like, it's not like John Tavares now in the locker room has a plastic chair in the corner and doesn't have a stall and it just gets this different treatment. You know what I mean? Like, it is an awkward scenario. And the only kind of comparison I can think of is San Jose, where they went through that switch when they went from Thornton, was it, to Marlowe, and then I think Rob Blake came in and he got the captaincy. And if you want to go as a comparison as far as results, it didn't really help them that much. So you're just talking about this all comes about because there hasn't been winning, and they just want things to be different. So they're looking for Auston Matthews, who he has to understand that with this captaincy, things have got to be a little bit different with him too. Like, when you're the captain, I saw it with Matt Sundin every single day. Whether you like it or not, whether you're pissy, whether you're in a good mood, after practice, you have to go out there and you have to address the media. And there's all different kinds of avenues when you do that. Sometimes you got to have your team's back. Sometimes you got to just be truthful and say, you know what, we didn't have it. But every day you got to go out there. So that's something Auston Matthews, and he hasn't exactly been, a media darling when speaking with the media. Do you know what I mean? Like, it seems like he can get a little bit crusty. And I think the one thing that's expected for him media-wise is just be a little bit truthful. Like, instead, like with John, it was a lot of, X's and O's and execution, where it was like, you totally missed the point of what happened. Like, if you coughed up a playoff series, and I'm not talking about like McDavid big statements like we've got to get to a cup or bust. Like, that was awesome, and they ultimately did get to a finals. But it's like, maybe let everybody know what the intentions are. Bryan, you mention it all the time. These guys never talk about any type of success or what they have in mind or what they want to do or winning the Stanley Cup, anything. Maybe that could be brought up, maybe a little bit more truthful at times, saying, we just stunk the joint out and we choked that away, or we just weren't that good enough. We've got to be better the next game.
Yeah.
Our goal, totally like, agree. We're dying to win. We're dying to win in here. It makes us sick that we lose or something. Although that doesn't make a difference that you have lost.
Right.
But that is, all of that losing is why we're coming back to this, and it's just a change. It's a change in direction.
But, I was going to say, Auston Matthews has been the best player for an awfully long time here, okay? He's had every opportunity to say those types of things. Doesn't need a letter on his jersey to say those types of things. And I'm just wondering, in your experience, does the physical letter actually make a difference?
I really don't think so. Although, as I said, there's just so many different topics to be brought up with this one happening here, which is a big deal because it's the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's a big honor for Auston Matthews. And Dave, I got to be honest with you, I thought he should have been the captain the first time around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think that was Mike Babcock, where he's like, oh, it's just one of the younger guys, and I don't want to give him all the keys to the car, and it's not the right move. Auston Matthews is the alpha dog. And for every other young guy who's the stud, who's the best player by a mile, becomes the captain of the team, whether it be Sidney Crosby or Jonathan Toews, maybe it could have been Kane. That's just the way it happens. It's like that was the choice the first time around. But to your point about leadership and talking, you're right. I was blessed to have a captain in Ron Francis who wasn't a rah-rah guy. But it was better that way because when he did say something, it was more important, and you either knew there was some importance on the line, you knew he was pissed, therefore you better be pissed as well. You knew it wasn't time to go out and have a good time. It was like, next game, you guys better be ready, blah, blah, blah. We all better be ready. When a guy doesn't speak a lot, when he does, the importance comes with it. So I really appreciated that out of Ron Francis. I spoke more in the locker room than he did. But when it came to something important, it came from him, and it was always the right time, and he always said the right thing. But you're right. Just because you have a letter, it doesn't mean you start standing up giving rah-rah speeches every game, and everybody stands up and says, yes, let's go get him. It's like everybody's got their role within the locker room, and it's like the captain's he's got to understand the timing of when he's got to say something and what he's going to say for it to have importance in there.
Yeah, I think in terms of the way he's going to play the game, it's not going to change.
No.
He guy's been in the league for 8 years. He's one of the 4 or 5 best players in the world. They don't want it to change. They want success in the playoffs.
But Hayes, maybe there's an understanding there when you're the captain. It's like big period, start of a period. I got to be your hardest working player. Mm-hmm. I got to be the best player on the ice. I've got to be more physical. I have to set a tone. How many times in the last 8 years have you seen this hockey team where they needed to set a tone? And we've talked about the way they played where it's like, we got to score a goal to get back into the side. Well, that would be good, but your whole approach to getting that goal or getting the crowd into it or getting momentum, it doesn't always have to be a goal. And I think that's why they've had so many shortcomings, is because their idea of getting back is always like, it's got to be that goal. Sometimes it's everything leading up to it, where it's like physical play. Mm-hmm. You look at the Florida Panthers. How many times did we describe them and say they overwhelm the other team? They just completely overwhelm them and dominate. And then the goal came after. So as far as his play alone, that's a big thing too. Be the best player on the ice at the right times. Be physical. Don't turn it over. Don't be the guy in a critical time where you're playing footsies with Mitch Marner just inside your blue line against the Florida Panthers and it ends up in the back of your net. Mm-hmm. That stuff can't happen.
Yeah, and I think when you think of how substantial this role is, the historical significance of it, an original 16, biggest hockey market in the world, there's also a separation that comes with this. With his counterparts have not really been Tavares, not necessarily been Riley. He came into the league with Marner and Nylander. Like the 3 kids all arriving at the same time. He has separated himself literally from the first game.
Absolutely.
Scored 4 goals in his first game.
Yep.
He's always been the man, but there has been kind of, a 3-pack mentality in terms of the way that they're approached. This is the team now saying, you are separate from that. Like, you are different from everyone else, and you need to accept that responsibility, and it's a big one. And also, the aura that comes with Auston Matthews in and of itself is significant, and it always has been, again, because he's beloved here. He's such a great player. He's such a great leaf. You strap the captaincy on it, there's an element of maturity and something that goes beyond it off the ice that comes with that, too. Like the captains of our lifetime, you meet Darryl Sittler, there's an aura that comes with that. Wendell Clark, Doug Gilmour, Matt Sundin, et cetera, that I think what is going to be important for him to establish here is what we're not going to see on a daily basis. What we're not going to hear when the cameras are on, the mics are on, what we're not going to see when the puck gets dropped. As I said earlier, captain skates. You talked about that. Ron Francis would call people down to Carolina. Does that start immediately with Auston? Mm-hmm. Does he say everyone's got to be here September 1st? I'm making that call. Because if he does, they're all going to show up. Do you show up at rookie camps? When you'd rather be somewhere else, do you fly in and say, I'm going to meet this kid and I'm going to talk to him because I'm the captain of the team? Not Matthews, the superstar. Not Matthews, the guy who scores 69. Matthews, the captain.
But it's got to be because number 34, the guy with the C on his jersey, truly, really wants that.
Exactly.
Not because Connor McDavid did that or because he thinks that might signal some seriousness. It has to be because he thinks he wants to do that. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
But they better have that answer, right? And he's obviously accepted this honor. He understands, it's going from Tavares to him. That's going to be an elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. They got to figure that out. They got to fall in line, and John's got to find his role here, and John Tavares has got to play well for them this year. He's got to get on the ice and perform and still be a leader in his own capacity. But obviously the Leafs wanted this to happen. Shanahan, Trey Living, everyone involved. And obviously the ball got rolling. Tavares said, okay, let's do it. Let's go. And now Matthews has accepted that. They've put their faith in him to be what you just talked about, that he's willing to accept that. And, by all accounts, everything you hear about him, good guy, treats people well. There's a lot of charity stuff behind the scenes that we don't see in here, and that's important. And that's what comes with being, the superstar of the Maple Leafs and making that kind of money and being the man and getting access to a lot of things that most people don't get. And by all accounts, he's done that and he's done it well. Now it's even beyond that. Now I think you got to go above and beyond. But you're right. It can't be Brad Treliving calling saying, can you show up here? Easton Cowan's in town. You mind talking to him? He's got to do it. Because what did we hear all year from Brad Marchand when he got the captaincy? It was like he showed up at rookie camp. I remember reading that online.
Oh, yeah.
Bruins reporters saying Brad Marchand is in the stands at rookie camp. And it was in like Connecticut or something in June. He didn't have to be there. He could have been playing golf in Nova Scotia. You
got to put your own spin on it, though. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't. I would rather hear something from somebody behind the scenes or somebody that would call me and say this happened, as opposed to it public where it's like Auston Matthews showed up here, or like it's just got to be his own spin on it, where it just can't be blurting something out to say, and that's where you have to figure out your own leadership style. It's like for you to just say, everybody better be in camp, everyone better be in Toronto early. I actually think they're in Toronto early anyway. But does it really mean anything if somebody declares, we're all here early, we're really serious? I'm not sure. But with Connor McDavid's little spiel last year, it was you better be here.
Right. Yeah. And that's authentic. And that is. You have to be authentic in the role. Yeah. Like Austin's a big boy. He's been in the league for 8 years. He's not, this isn't like we said earlier, Connor Bedard being like, all right, you're 19 and you're the captain because it's going to be that way and it's going to be tough because you're a kid. He's not a kid. And he hasn't been a kid for years. No,
to O-Dog's point, he should have had this C on his jersey a long time ago. We all know there's various reasons for that. But O-Dog, I'm interested in your take on Tavares. Like, this is a humbling moment, right? Like, no matter how they spin it tomorrow, no matter what is said publicly, you had the C of your hometown team, the most famous hockey club on this planet, and now you don't. And how do you think he's going to take that?
Dave, from my understanding, just through Twitter and some of Dreg's reporting and CJ, he's been so-called involved in this process and nobody's okay with this. When this is brought to your attention, like you can just think of a guy that changed teams just 2 months ago, Steven Stamkos, if he went back to Tampa and all of a sudden it was like, you're not going to be the captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning this year.
Right.
That guy's got a lot of pride, and the C on their jersey means a lot to these guys. It's like they kind of connect themselves, with the team, with the jersey and the C on it. And John Tavares and Steven Stamkos and Crosby and they've all had the same jersey. And this does not happen often. So when you show up and it's like you're not going to be the captain anymore, and I've had an experience, and it's completely different, where I played in Carolina for a long time, and I've told Hayes this. I came back on a tryout basis a year and a half after being there a long time, where I was one of the main focal points in the locker room. And I went back there and I was just a guy in there. And it's different because everyone's like, you're not O-Dog, the guy that's been here for 10 years and you run the show and you range golf and you say when we're doing this and when we're doing that. You're trying to make the team and you're a guy. And that is not the same case for John Tavares. But maybe it's better for John, where he can just focus on his game and literally just try to be a good player and help them win. And you don't have to deal with the media every day, and you don't have to deal with the side stuff. But regardless of what anybody says of how cooperative he's been, it might have been his idea, blah, blah, blah. This is never a fun thing. If you're a guy that cares about leadership, cares about the game as much as John does, it's just not a fun thing. And who knows, maybe there's underlying things about his contract where this signifies the end of the line, and after this year, that he's no longer going to be. Who knows? There's all these different factors that could be a part of this. But when you're playing, this is never obviously a positive thing when somebody brings this to your attention.
And obviously, it doesn't happen if they've won. Right? Like if they've won something, then obviously change isn't necessary.
No kidding. Though, like I said at the top, Hayes, this all comes down to a lack of success.
Yes.
It's like the new coach, Brad being in there, the change of the captaincy. This happens because of failure.
Right.
We're not doing this if they've been to a cup final or won a cup. None of this is being talked about.
No. Dubas is probably still here. Keith's still here. Tavares is still the captain. It's all the same.
All of it.
So from that standpoint, I think change was necessary. This does feel like a bit of a half measure because it's not tangible change in terms of the actual players. Like as I said last hour, probably the biggest thing that's changed with the core four is the fact that they're even more expensive now than they ever have been.
That's right.
Because Willie's making 11.5 and Austin's making 13.25. So yes, Austin's the captain, and that's an intangible change and a culture change, and one that I understand why they're doing it, and they're hoping that it has an important and positive impact long term. And go for it. I'm all for that. Give it a shot. But ultimately, the core four is still here.
Right.
And Riley's still here. And they're making more money than they've ever made. And it's going to be even more difficult for them to actually make changes in terms of having positive results because they can't actually acquire as many pieces as maybe they need to. Because Willie making 6.9.
Yeah.
All right. $4.5 million. Maybe Matt Roy's here or something. Brett Pesci's maybe
Never
here.
know.
Can't be here because Willie's making more. Understandable. Willie was a great player, had a great season. Austin's making more. So it's actually even more difficult this season for them to have that success because they're all making even more money. So the philosophy and the team building concept has not worked for the longest time. It's going to be even more difficult for it to succeed this year.
Yeah,
so they're hoping culture change and coaching change will get that done. And I don't know. I'm skeptical. I mean, to put it lightly, I'm skeptical. Yeah,
it's coming down to we're all getting down to the same thing. And we talked about golf at the top of this, where it's like if you're a golfer and you get really nervous over like Greaserman did the other day, you get really nervous in critical moments and you can't do it and you start gassing putts and you change your caddy, you change your coach. Do you think that's going to make any difference when you get over those putts the next time around?
Right.
You're still the same guy that has to perform under the same circumstances. And for years with these guys, we're going to be talking about, can they get it done come playoff time? That's it. They've chiseled around the edges of it. They got to get leadership. They got to get grit. They got to get this. They got to get that. And then they got to get a new captain and a new coach and a new GM. And when the puck drops, you're going to be saying the same thing. Fantastic players, very talented. They're probably going to end up with 100+ points. But come drop of the puck, if that same team is assembled come playoff time, is William Nylander and Auston Matthews and Tavares and Morgan Riley and Mitch Marner, can they get it done come playoff time?
Yeah.
Is Auston Matthews just got a different letter on his jersey? What is that really going to change? And like we said, this is an important thing. Being the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs is a big deal. It's a big deal to me.
Great honor. It's a great honor.
By the way, you missed Rick Vaive when you were naming the captain.
Rick Vaive, too. Love Rick Vaive.
He took a lot of pride in being the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yep.
But it's the same guys that go out there. It's like different message, different leader. They've all been in the same locker room, probably tossing around the same thoughts and same ideas. So I don't know. This all comes about because there hasn't been success. So they're just trying to do some different things.
Yeah. And listen, if they do have success, maybe it is the change of coaching. Maybe it is, a turnover of captaincy or a leadership shuffle. But ultimately, we're not going to know that until we get there next April. Yet, we'll see. I mean, we'll find out some answers tomorrow in terms of maybe how they handle the A's, I don't know how important that is, but it's maybe they throw a bone to John Tavares. Does he want to be an A anymore?
Yeah, well,
does he want to remain in the leadership?
I would say that would probably not be the best idea. It's almost like, just to say, it's like if you have a little kid and you take away one toy and you say, you take this crappier toy just to keep you happy.
Right.
It's just...
Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Just rip the Band-Aid off and say we have a different leadership group. We just need you to be a really good player.
Mm-hmm. And I think that could be helpful for him. I think it'll be a difficult transition originally. He'll handle the media well. He always does. He'll go about his business. I don't think you can get him to flinch.
No, he'll have the most cliche answers where this felt like the right time and it was the best thing for the group.
Right.
And this and that.
But he's got to have a big season because in order for him to have any possibility at a future here, they've got to win, and he's got to factor into that winning. And putting the cap aside, everyone knows he's not making $11 million or anything like that. Nowhere. That's not going to happen. But he has pressure on himself this year
But Hayes,
to perform
I gotta
and
interrupt
continue
you.
with his career.
If they don't have success again, why does he need to be a part of the future?
I don't think he will be. I can't guarantee
I have
that.
people come up to me all the time with these ridiculous narratives where they're like, I think, getting Tavares on a 4 or 5 year deal at $3 million would be the best thing. What are you talking about if they don't win?
Mm-hmm.
Like people, you saw what happened in Tampa Bay. They just drifted Steven Stamkos and said, you're not coming back here at all.
Yeah.
You're going to a different team. You could go play somewhere else. I don't know. It's just, if it doesn't work again, it's got to be a complete reboot of different players and a different idea.
Again, I'll believe that when I see it with this organization and the way they operate. But I agree with your assessment. What I'm saying, though, is the only way for it to make sense publicly is for him to have a great year and them to win.
Right.
And then in order for that to happen, though...
Win the Stanley Cup.
And the catch 2022 will be...
I don't know if they're going to win the Cup, O-Dog.
That it happened when he wasn't the captain. Yeah. So then he's that's going to be a part of, look what they did.
Okay, Dave, the other idea is you get to a conference final, and it's like, great, you bring him back, and then kind of the wheels are falling off, and then you got him again. You have to know the timing of walking away from a player. Yeah. How many times have you seen it? Just the courteous, that was a good playoff run. You want to come back for 3 years? And at Christmas time, you can't stand watching the player. You have to understand timing and performance.
Well, you're right, O-Dog. I mean, the guy's going to be 34 when camp begins.
Yeah, and they wanted him to play in the third line as early as last year.
Yeah, we talk about humbling. You lose the C. You've been asked to play on the third line. He's seeing the writing on the wall of his career arc, and it's going downhill. There's no doubt about it. But to your point, O-Dog, like Tavares isn't the only one you can say that about. Like, they've got to have success, or there's no point having this guy back. You can probably say the same thing about Marner. You're going to definitely say the same thing about the guy at the top, Brendan Shanahan, who's in the 11th year of what we believe to be 11 years of guaranteed contracts, right? Like, how can you possibly, if you're Keith Pelly, if you're Brad Treliving, how can you possibly look at this team and say, yeah, let's bring the band back?
Well, and that would explain these moves, is that I'm sure Pelly and company said, what are you going to do differently? And they may have had some grandiose plan of moving off player X and player Y.
Well, that blew up when they said, we actually can't do that.
Well, and that's my point. Exactly. Right. Those guys aren't waving, so we're not doing anything.
Handcuffed.
And that's when maybe Pelly said, well, you better do something. And it was like, well, we're going to get a new coach, and we're going to rock the apple cart here and make a new captain.
Yeah.
And, because they could have waited a year on this. Could have waited until John's deal was up and then move a different direction. Austin still got 3 years left on his deal after that. Maybe Austin's here for another 10, 12, 15 years. Who knows? He could have still been the captain for a long, long time. The timing is not a coincidence. There's a ton of pressure on this team, and it starts with Shanahan, and then it leads into certain players. And as a result, they're doing everything they possibly can to make it look and feel different.
Yeah,
and in many ways
a bunch of times, Brian, like, Brad's done what he could to address some of the things he's seen being around this team for a year. And after next year, when the money comes off the books, he himself can really, like, if those players have changed out, he can really use that money to shape the team differently. There's just no other way around it as far as the way they're structured right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, man. Mid-August, and they're in camp in a month. So we'll see what comes out of it tomorrow. All right, good stuff, man.
Hayes, I want to tell you one thing. I had an idea for you, and I want to come. Are you working on Friday?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
I want to come on Friday for the last segment of the show because I have a segment for you. Shannon Doherty from Beverly Hills 90210. She had this thing where she blocked people from attending her funeral. Okay? Did you hear about that?
No, I was not aware of that.
She had a list of people that weren't allowed in.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. So we got to do the Overdrive. If there was an Overdrive funeral, Toronto sports people, that we don't want in the door, okay? People that are just not, whether it be Harold Ballard, Kerry Fraser, anybody. We got to come up with a list of people that are not allowed in the door.
Wow, I got a great appreciation for that.
That's pretty cool.
Like, that's even after
can you imagine how embarrassing it would be to show up and be like, Actually, you're not wanted.
Let me look at this list she wrote out. Oh, you're on it. You're not allowed in here. What did you do? Wouldn't there be like a follow-up? Like, why would you be on this list? And then it's on the person to explain why they've been blocked.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I did.
Still mad at me for that.
Yeah, that's right. I did call her that.
That's an embarrassing, like, walk of shame, like walking away from a funeral, not being allowed in.
That one stings, man. That one, like, you're there to pay your respects, and it's like, actually, she wants you nowhere close to this place.
And she followed through on it, too.
She made it very clear.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is my last, like, dying wish is you make sure these people are nowhere close to this funeral. I wasn't aware of that, but I'm glad you brought that story up. All right, we'll catch you at, like, 6:45 on Friday.
Can't wait. See you guys. Thanks for having me.
The O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill.
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Auston trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
All right, Confirm or Deny brought to you by Summit Ford and South Lake Ford Lincoln, where there's no such thing as a no trade clause. Any make, any model, any time. Visit summitford.com or southlakeford.com. All right, let's put the Leaf captaincy stuff aside for a bit here. We'll get back into it into the next hour. Bruce Boudreau will join us in about an hour. We'll get into this story with Bruce as well. A couple of offer sheets signed today.
Yeah.
Double shot by the Blues going after two players on the Edmonton Oilers. So Philip Broberg, a defenseman, signs 2 years, $4.58 million, and Dylan Holloway signs 2 years at $2.29 million. So Broberg, the compensation will be a second-round pick. Holloway, the compensation will be a third-round pick. And I think it's within like dollars or cents from moving over to the next level of compensation.
Right at the top.
Right at the top. So now the Edmonton Oilers have a week in order to match both offer sheets. Confirm or deny, the Oilers will match both of them.
Well, this is a straight deny because I don't think they can. I mean, this is GM on GM crime.
Yes.
Like, this is Doug Armstrong firing a shot.
That's Stan Bowman. Welcome back into the league.
Enjoy your first day on the job because this is your first real day on the job. You really got to start working now, Stan. Working for the Edmonton Oilers. And Jeff Jackson, the president, is going to be doing some work too because the Oilers are very vulnerable here. They're $7+ million over the cap already. They got to re-sign Draisaitl. They got to re-sign Bouchard, right? And so they get these two young guys, and there's no way that a 23-year-old Broberg at this moment in time is worth $4.6 million.
No.
So how can you you can't make that purchase, or maybe you have to. But the idea that you're going to sign both these young guys and Holloway gives them a speed element they really need. But I just can't see him signing both. So I figure, like, the best way I've looked at it, talking to people around the league, it seems like the more likely scenario is they keep Holloway, as much as you'd love to keep the young defenseman. The cheaper guy might be the more practical keep, and you maybe got to let Broberg go at a price you just cannot afford.
Yeah, I'm going to deny this as well. I think the move is to let Broberg walk. He's not that young. He's 23.
Yeah.
He was a Ken Holland draft pick and a guy that barely played in the league last year. He was kind of up and down. He came in and out of the lineup in the playoffs. They threw a grenade in the finals. I believe they said, "Screw it, we're going with Broberg. Let's get him in there." He's got size. Obviously, they like his ability. Former top 10 pick, but he is not worth anywhere close to 4.5. No. And this is kind of like the Kotkaniemi deal, where for me, why I think Carolina did that with Kotkaniemi, in fact, I know, is because the Habs tried to get Sebastian Aho.
Right.
They walked in and said, screw it, we're going to try to get Aho here. He's a great player, and he was worth the money they offered him. And Carolina took it, and Carolina said, we're going to get you back. And they burned themselves because it was stupid, because Kotkaniemi wasn't worth anything close to $6 million.
Overpaid.
St. Louis is doing the same thing here. Philip Broberg is not a top 4 defenseman in this league. $4.5 million is a silly price to pay. So if I'm Edmonton, I'm saying, fine, go ahead, walk. Holloway, I'm matching. Now, this is where Jeff Jackson, who was getting a lot of accolades, may have burned himself a little bit, because he signed Arvidsson, he brought in Jeff Skinner, and he had not figured out what to do with these two guys yet. And I think Jackson figured, and I think rightly so, because of the history of offer sheets in the league. They never happen. No one's going to come after our guys. We got all the leverage. We're going to lean on these two. They're going to have to sign for nothing. Maybe it's a 1-year deal. We'll get them back, though, for like $1 million a pop, $1.5 million. And, hey, call me when you're ready to sign that. Yeah. And obviously what's happened here is Broberg's agent and Holloway's agent have been working the phones and finding an alternative option here. and they got it in St. Louis. So I think if you're in Edmonton, you like Arvidsson, so do I. You like Skinner, okay. But did you need to figure this business out first? You got burned a little bit there.
Big time.
But I'm letting Broberg walk. I'm signing Holloway, and I'm just taking the second-round pick and moving on. Because what St. Louis also understands here is they are vulnerable, Edmonton. They're over the cap. I think it's actually somewhat of a compliment to Edmonton. The other teams realize they're at the top. Like, we got to come for these guys, and we got to try to figure this out. But if you pay someone $4.5 million, if Edmonton matches, they have to play Broberg.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be your seventh defenseman making 4.5. So it's not just about matching because you like the talent. You got to play him.
Well,
like, you got to call your coach and be like, if we match, he's got to play 20 minutes a night for us.
Well, sure, but what if he's out of his depth and he can't play?
But that's why you got to let him walk.
Yeah,
if you conclude that.
Kotkaniemi's not playing 20 minutes a night. He's playing like 12 minutes, right, or 15 or whatever he's playing. He's a depth piece at $6 million, and Carolina miscalculated on that one. In a, as you pointed out, a bit of a blowback. Get back for the Habs attempt at Aho. But yeah, like this is tough business, man. And you wonder, Hayes, would Doug Armstrong have tried this if it was his old pal Kenny Holland still in the GM seat? Because they go back a long time. They work together on
that's a very good
Canada
question.
Stuff.
That's kind of a conspiracy theory that, like, Holland, I don't think loved the way he went out there. I'm not sure he was ecstatic with the way, Jackson coming in and then Knobloch, and it's you're right. I mean, yet you would think Stan Bowman has been a part of that club for a long time as well, but maybe he's on the outside looking in now.
Maybe this is more of a shot at
Jeff Jackson.
People that were there before Stan Bowman.
I think that's valid because historically there's been this gentleman's agreement in the league, which is always so stupid and ridiculous. But that's always, I believe, the reason why these deals generally don't end up happening and they don't end up signing these RFAs or tendering offer sheets is out of respect to those GMs who they work so closely with for so long.
Got to have that trust.
Like, I'm not going to do that to Ken Holland. I'm not going to do that to Lou Lamoriello. I'm not going to do that to Jim Rutherford because I have too much time and respect for them.
And you're also worried what they might do to you, and you want to be able to sleep at night.
Conversely, you do worry about that. And it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
The players have to be willing to do it too. Yeah. Like, this obviously means these players were frustrated with the fact that they came up and down a lot last year. Both of them spent a lot of time in Bakersfield. They weren't everyday players in the NHL. Holloway played pretty much every game, I believe, in the playoffs and played pretty well.
Yeah.
Broberg played 10 playoff games in the playoffs.
Yeah.
In and out. And this is them saying, put up or shut up. I want to play. I'm 22, 23. Commit to me. And we'll see if the Oilers are willing to do that.
Yeah, and you can find people that say their development, both these guys' development, has been botched by the Oilers in some way. Maybe that's on Kenny Holland. Maybe it's on coaching staffs. Maybe it's on developmental staff. So you can point a lot of fingers when guys don't develop. As you point out, like, these guys are first-round picks. These guys are guys, Holloway 14th overall, Broberg 8th overall. I mean, these guys, significant resources put into these guys, and here you are at a point that is not particularly favorable for the Oilers, but looks like it's gonna be very profitable for both players.
Yes, it will. All right, confirm or deny. This will lead to more offer sheets being tendered throughout the NHL. This will be a watershed moment that we'll look back on and say, finally, we're getting this throughout the NHL.
I've been around too long to say anything but deny. Because we have, like, these things happen. Like, the Kotkaniemi one is a good one.
That was out of spite, though, again.
Yeah.
Like, that was spiteful.
And maybe Jeff Jackson and Stan Bowman are, looking ahead and saying, how can we, out of spite, get Doug Armstrong?
Possibly.
I mean, who knows? I mean, if you start doing that, I think you end up in the spot the Hurricanes are in, which is you got a player you don't really want at a price you really can't afford, right? And so that's dangerous stuff. But because of all the reasons you just outlined, Hayes, like, smart, conservative GMs that want to be able to sleep at night don't want to do this because there's other ways to build your team. You often run the risk of overpaying, and you run the risk of making an enemy in a league where it pays to have friends.
Yes, it does. And that's why I will deny it as well, though this seems like a very isolated situation because we're into mid-August. Two young players, both high-end picks, both with, by all accounts, a fair amount of talent, certainly, but also, like, the prospects of a good career, right? Like, moving in the right direction in terms of who they are and their growth, and they're ready to pounce in the NHL if they're given that opportunity. And a scenario where the Oilers are obviously handcuffed in terms of not only not having the space, like, they're over. Like, they got to figure out what's going to happen with Evander Kane now. They got to figure out
LTIR.
possibly long-term IR, where that's a sticky situation. You can't force a player to have surgery, but it may be strongly suggested, if you're going to get it anyway, can you do us that favor? How about some surgery late in the year? Push it back. Long-term IR, come back after the deadline or into the playoffs or whatever. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But these are players that are depth pieces in the NHL right now, not everyday guys. Get into their early 20s. It's into August. Like, it's very isolated situation. There's a lot of specifics here that make this a unique scenario. The fact that it's the same team, two different players, two different agents.
Yeah.
I assume they have the same agent. They don't. The players have two different agents, as far as I know anyway, what I read this afternoon. So obviously there was kind of a conjunction there where both sides said, let's work together here and get this deal done. But I'd like to see it because I do think it would spark more action in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
You get young players who are RFAs, and there's a lot of them around the league every single year that come out that are really good players on really good teams that are in situations like the Oilers are in right now. They could be next year with Bouchard. Like, Bouchard's going to be an RFA. They may need $10 million to pay him.
Oh, yeah.
How are they going to do that if Draisaitl sticks around and makes 14 and they know McDavid's going to make 16 or something? How are they going to make that work?
That's the thing. Those got to be that's the thing that scares you if you're an Oilers fan, is that you've got those two big priorities in Draisaitl and Bouchard, and this distracts you from them, right? Like, ideally, you'd love to hear that they're working on an extension with Leon Draisaitl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would, you talk about sleeping at night.
Yeah.
You'd start sleeping at night a lot better as an Oilers fan, or an Oilers coach for that matter, if you knew Draisaitl was locked up.
It certainly would. Again, let's say they match these two, and maybe they do end up doing that. Like, there is a long history of teams matching it and saying, we'll figure, maybe they're going to take the next week to work on a trade that they may realize they'll lose.
Well, you could dump Cody Ceci. You probably have to.
That's probably what has to happen.
Sweetener.
Well, that's what I think they would have done that anyway by now if they could have.
Right.
Unless they have to attach a sweetener to it. But if, let's say they match, Broberg at 4.5, you can have Darnell Nurse at 9.5, I think. Like, that's $14 million on the left side of your defense. Ekholm, I think, is going into his final year as well. I mean, you got Bouchard.
Guys that aren't even top four guys necessarily.
That's the thing.
In the moment.
Exactly. Like,
Broberg may grow into that. They hope he does.
Well, and if you're going to pay him for 2 more years at 4.5, he better turn into that. You're going to basically force him into that situation. But you look at it here: Ekholm, Bouchard, Nurse, Ceci, Kulak, Brown, Broberg, Stetcher.
Yeah.
It was good enough to get them to a cup final. And if Darnell Nurse, plays better than he did at times in the playoffs, I think he's capable of that. That will go a long way, where Ekholm, Nurse, and Bouchard can give you a pretty good top 3. But what do you have beyond that if you're in Edmonton? And again, you're going to be paying Broberg a lot of money if you end up matching that.
It's
and
a
at
tough
some point,
spot,
Skinner's going to want to get paid.
Well, that's the other thing.
Like, Bouchard, Skinner, Draisaitl, McDavid are all going to want more money and get more money in the next 2 years.
Yes.
So,
without a doubt,
figure that out.
Yeah, it's a tricky spot, man. It's some heavy lifting for Stan Bowman.
Welcome back. Figure it out, man. That's why you're there. Maybe that's why Jeff Jackson, again, was like, I got to get someone else in here that sees things a little bit differently than I do. That's done it before, that has, although Bowman's been on the job for a few weeks, it didn't stop St. Louis from doing this.
No.
So, it'll be an interesting 7 days out in Edmonton.
I would
see if they end up matching or not.
I would say so.
Confirm and deny, brought to you by Summit Ford and South Lake Ford Lincoln, where there's no such thing as a no trade clause, any make, any model, anytime. Visit summitford.com or southlakeford.com. Bruce Boudreau coming up on this and more. Farhanlology still to come. A little confirm or deny after dark. And our best bets brought to you by FanDuel still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Dave Feschuk. We got Bruce Boudreau coming up. NFL news, man. I jinxed it last week, Dave. I was talking about how there wasn't a lot of injury news. Luckily, knock on wood, you're early into camp. You always hear about injuries. And now, Jahmyr Gibbs, hamstring issue or injury. J.J. McCarthy, a meniscus tear in Minnesota. And I've been through this meniscus tear where again, not a professional athlete, not even remotely close to it, but the same scenario where when I had my surgery, they're like, we'll let you know. If we cut it, He'll be up and walking in a day or two.
Yeah.
If we repair it, you're not doing anything for a few months.
Right.
And it sounds like the same thing with McCarthy, where if they go in there and they decide, okay, we have to cut it, he'll be playing. And he might be okay for week 1. I doubt it. But if he has to get it repaired, that's a completely different process. He may not play the whole year. And I guess they got to figure that out.
That's a dicey one, man.
It is. Malik Neighbors is banged up. Rondell Moore's done for the year. Like, just out of nowhere, all these injuries popping up. That's the nature of football, though. You get into camp, and it just happens.
Well, and this is why the good players don't play, right? The old players don't play. The veteran guys don't play. Because what McCarthy takes 30 snaps. And what do you know?
Tears his meniscus and maybe your season's done.
In a meaningless preseason game. I mean, what's it for? I mean, I know you're a rookie. You got to get in there. It's a fine line between getting them reps, letting them see real action, and keeping them healthy.
Yeah, it's a nightmare for the NFL. And there's nothing you can do. You can't bubble wrap guys. You're going to play games. A lot of these guys get injured in practice. That's never going to change, you know. But it is a constant. Every single year, there are guys that are going to miss the whole season, not even get to the starting line. Forget the finish line, not even the starting line. And in a guy like J.J. McCarthy, I think Minnesota understands they're kind of resetting. They're going to turn this over a little bit. But they traded up to get him.
Oh, yeah.
And he's their quarterback of the future. And now you wonder if he's even going to get to play in his rookie season. And if he does, how does it affect his preparation and what he looks like?
Oh, it's
tough news, man.
It's tough to take, man. You feel for a young guy like that because it's such a hard position to play when you're healthy. And
right.
Add on a meniscus tear. And to your point, the meniscus, you hear so many nightmares about the problematic nature of this injury.
Yes. And how
it can come back.
Keeps coming back and back and back, and issues basically for the rest of your life.
Mike Trout is a good example. He tore the meniscus, came back, tore it again.
See you later.
Yeah.
Exactly. Final hour coming up. Farhan Lalji on Nathan Rourke's return to the CFL, and Bruce Boudreau will join us. So Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.